Hello and welcome. My name is Kevin Robinson. So glad you joined us today. I'm looking forward to accelerating your success in using AI, going from noise and confusion, frustration, into really getting extraordinary elite results. If you haven't already taken the AI Fundamentals course Part 1, you may want to go back and do that. This is AI Fundamentals Part 2. You don't have to have taken the first one to enjoy this one.
Thanks for joining AI Fundamentals Part 2. It's titled The Infinite Brainstorm because what we're looking to do is really put all the best ideas up front and find out which ones will survive the brainstorm. So that takes creating a lot of ideas, and AI is up for the challenge. So let's jump right in. Okay, full transparency here. I got to this slide in recording this training and went completely blank. So here's the real deal. Uh, in professional environments, we're really pressured to get it right the first time. This can be a real stumbling block. So finding out how to get your flow going, how to get things moving can be a challenge. Once I worked for a particular manager, they said, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to create an innovation team, and we're going to meet once a week on Tuesdays at 3:30, and we're going to innovate in that hour. And we occupied a very sterile conference room in a corporate environment, and we attempted to brainstorm and innovate. And let me tell you, nothing came of that. It is the worst possible idea to try and innovate in a sterile environment. There's no stimulus for coming up with something new. It's usually either born from some kind of problem that you're having or something you're inspired to do. So you need to think about the environment. We need to think about the environmental stimulus. In our case, right now, we're just getting started. So I'm going to go on and start talking about how AI can help us to do that. The first consideration for our environmental status is cognitive room to do what it is that we need to do. If we're going to innovate, we need to move some of the mundane things out of the way. Some of the things that may be required, may be necessary, may actually require some of your expertise, but we're going to offload portions of that to make sure that we have room and space. Remember, I said that conference room is not the place to ideate. You may want to take a walk, and you may want to get out in nature. You may want to go see something inspiring, a movie or something of that nature to create a different environment for your mind to operate in. So getting the mundane, routine, everyday things that we do out of the way is a way to really generate the type of environment that will help us to ideate with the help of AI. So where AI can help us to do this is get our bandwidth back by having it do things like research. This thing can research much faster than us and bring back more results. And again, we can sift through what we want and what we'd like to keep. And it can also summarize that research into reports and get all the information that we need, both in an expansive way and a constraining way that says, I just want this. So really think through the fact that it can go both ways with the data that it captures and save us time and energy in routine and mundane tasks. The other thing is reminders, things that we typically take up our memory space that we have to do, we have to think about them, we have to hold them in our mind. And if we have reminders that jump up, that frees up the space where it would hold reservation in my memory. Now I can actually go on and do other things with the knowledge and full confidence that I will be reminded in time to do what I need to do. Now, that will allow us to elevate our time that we can dedicate to innovation and ideation. This is the part of our day where we can actually daydream. We can brainstorm. So here at TechBridge, what we really think about more so than the technology is the human. And so let's start by addressing the mindset. the mindset that we have to have in order to get the best results out of AI. So if we approach AI as just a tool, we will limit it to finite tasks and thoughts. Things like fix my grammar, which is essentially a glorified spell checker, right? And then we're dealing with things like staring at the cursor on the blank page. We just finished talking about that. How do we generate more than one idea? We may have one good idea, but there may be others. How do we get out of the default of AI bias, just getting back generic answers that maybe don't reflect actually what we're trying to do or the audience we're trying to speak to, or even the business problem that we're trying to solve? And then, of course, assuming it's correct, well, you know the old adage about assume. I'm not going to go into it here, but it would make one out of both me and you. So let's look at the partner mindset that allows us to really expand what we think AI might be able to do for us. And this is aspirational. This is because it's a partner. It's not just a tool that's limited. Who knows what boundaries or that we can surpass or that we will be able to overcome. So boiling the ocean, wow, that's a concept I used to be told we can't boil the ocean. Well, hey, how about we think about it in that way? It can take on massive amounts of data, much more than we could, and boil it down to a reasonable understanding and insight in record time. We can blast lots and lots of ideas across onto the wall and see what sticks. We can generate ideas and really fine tune each idea and make sure we understand what exactly are the best ideas. We can stress test those ideas. We can have it say which of these ideas will fail and how will it fail. The other piece is, and we talked about this in the AI Fundamentals Part 1 video, is your personal DNA. Inject what I want from the AI, how I want it, who I am, what I think about things, who I serve, what are my goals, so that it can place things in context and not just give me generic AI slop. And lastly, looking at the output and making sure that we check in with a subject matter expert. And that might not be a human being. It might be a report that we've gotten from a human being. An insight that's shown up from a study that tells us this is the right subject matter to verify the answer that we got. So it's not a matter of having to necessarily touch base with an expert person, human, but the output of those expert humans is important to use to verify what our output from AI is. So here's the main idea. Let's try boiling the ocean. Let's put a whole bunch of divergent ideas out there and just keep it ticking, keep it going. This creates innovation because these are things we might never have thought of before, and ideas that get us to start thinking differently about how that solution might work. So we want to blast out as many ideas as possible. And in that, we can find the idea that works for what we're trying to do. So the idea here is one little diamond that's in the rough, that's out there. And again, we're going to do iterative analysis through further prompts that get us closer to the diamond, the actual shined and cut diamond. Now, the other useful tactic that is the opposite of the divergent thinking is to constrain the actual data that comes back and the ideas. We want to get rigorous validation from experts. So we're taking our human expertise, mapping it on top of the number of ideas that are coming back. And this is where we start to get the feasibility of the ideas that are happening, where those ideas will be helpful, where they might hurt us. So we want to make sure that the ideation that we're going through has both of these components, one that expands our thinking and the other that constrains it down based on the myriad of ideas that are created in the expansion, that we start to sift down the ones that are going to be the best for the particular circumstances and opportunities that we're applying them to. You may want to consider what are the institutional guardrails, what are the standards that we use, and the standard practices and the norms that are associated in the organization as well as the human's expertise. So many times we're being asked to apply AI inside of an environment, an organizational environment, and that requires things that may be standardized, like branding and voice and all of those sorts of things that need to be considered in the outputs that we create.
Hey, if you're enjoying this content, please hit below, like, and subscribe. Also, we need your comments. We need your feedback. This is the major reason why we do free things, is to get feedback so we can get better at serving you. So please, please, please put your comments down there and let us know what you like, what you don't like, and how we can improve. Looking forward to reading your comments. Thank you so much, and on with the program.
So we learned in part one of our AI fundamentals training that the large language model is driven by data and that it forms pathways that become algorithms that evaluate data. So by nature of how this machine is designed, the data has an impact on how the algorithm works. And that naturally creates something that is called bias. So the data shows different trends, different patterns, and the algorithm will be biased based on those patterns. Now, bias can be judged to be good or bad. If we have a bias that takes us closer to success, most people would consume that as being good. If we take a bias that directs us towards some inequities and things of that nature, that might be considered a bad bias. For an example, if a bank has given out loans historically to certain people and qualified those people above other people, that might be a bias that is good for them to minimize their risk or at least duplicate the risk tolerance that they've had in the past. But if they're trying to open up to a newer market, that data is going to bias them against that newer market and make it harder for those folks to actually qualify. So when we look at stuff like that and we start saying, okay, what's the intention of the algorithm? When we start looking at our target audience, which is a culturally diverse audience, we look at communities that maybe are underserved. We're looking at folks that might be underrepresented in the access to technology. So that's our target audience, and that's why we're making these videos. That's why we're creating these trainings. We want to make sure it's accessible and that it levels the playing field. So that data is not necessarily going to be represented in the current large language models that are emerging from Silicon Valley. That's a very different community. It's a very different set of cultural nuances that are available in that community that are tended towards people that are highly literate in technology. So our audience is very different from that. We're really trying to focus on people that are not technical and help them understand they don't need to be technical to leverage this technology to be successful in their assigned goal. So that's really the bias is not a negative thing. Many people take that word to be negative, but it should be intentional. Which bias are we trying to create? Which outcomes are we trying to create? And are we paying attention to the outputs that are being created does it represent the bias that we intended? I really love this slide. As we discussed in AI Fundamentals Part 1, we did see that the personal DNA file is something we can use as a lens for AI to speak back to us. And the purpose of this is so that it really is most comfortable and more tailored to what you want from the AI. So most of the people that use AI are frustrated or they're being led down a path of generic data. So they're getting outputs that are generic and therefore less effective for the audience that you may have, for the intentions that you have, or even for the things that are most important to you and how you communicate. It may take you longer to understand what it's actually saying. So you can feed AI in this personal DNA file things like your goals, your personal goals, your style of management and decision making, things like even personality files like a Myers-Briggs or a Strength Finders result. You can also give it things like how do I want to be communicated to in my brand voice. You might have had an AI query that helped you review all of your writing, emails, social posts, and things of that nature, and give you a voice summary and include that in your personal DNA file so it knows how you speak and can speak to you in terms that are most understandable for you. I cannot overemphasize how important it is to get AI responses validated. Now, when I say validated or verified, I mean you need to think through where did this information come from, so you can ask for citations when you query AI. And secondly, go verify that those citations are real and that they actually point to real references. You can also go after the fact and search and make sure that you find supporting data from subject matter experts that's published. Or if you know someone who is a subject matter expert, have them review the output. So AI is great for planning. It's great for putting together strategic plans, tactical step-by-step plans, and having someone to look at that before you go execute on it is really helpful, useful, and can save you a lot of time and effort. Now remember, we're spending a lot less time in actually generating the plan or the output. So this is time well spent to go look and verify and validate. We've saved a lot of time. What used to take us maybe hours of research, we've shrunk down to now minutes or even seconds. So the extra time that it might take you to go find out and verify that what the data it gave you is accurate is very important. It's critical. If you want to have high success rates with AI, never leave this step out. One of the best kept secrets in working with AI is telling the AI, the large language model, that if you don't understand, you can ask me clarifying questions. You can even go as far as prompting AI to say, continue to ask me questions until you're 90% sure of what I'm asking for, or 100% sure of what I am asking for, and see what that does. It may ask you more questions than you thought you were willing to answer. So that's a more intense questioning mechanism than let me know if you have any questions. Typically, if there are any gaps, any opportunities and potential for misrepresentation or misinterpretation, it will capture that and ask you a question because there is so much opportunity for us to miscommunicate. So we talked about the CRISP method before in terms of how do we speak AI's language. Now we're asking it to make sure that we're in sync by clarifying and closing any gaps if there are additional questions. just like you're going to ask it clarifying questions when it gives you responses, you're giving it the opportunity to do the same thing. So looking back across the whole spectrum of what we've talked about, we could start with the blank page. We can create crisp prompts that will allow us to explode a divergent path of thinking, give us multitude of options and thoughts to then sift through and apply our expertise to pick out the best ones. We'll have the AI speak back to us using the tone, language, and lens that needs to be used to make it most understandable for us and eliminate misinterpretation and misrepresentation by clearing things up with our personal DNA file. We take whatever those responses are and we go back through the expert verification loop, making sure that what it's given us is accurate and actionable. Now we have innovation that is transparent. It's ideal for executing the most effective plans and strategies that are available through the large language model. The key is this is all guided by the human, and we're using the large language model as a supercharger for what the human vision and desire outcome is supposed to look like. So if we really characterize the large language models in AI as our thinking partner, it's a large language model. The language is what it's the expert at. It's not thinking, it's using and predicting what large language models do. What are the next words that are most likely to come behind this word? It's looked at a lot of different implementations of those words. It's seen all sorts of references and articles and studies. And so the words that it's using give us the impression that there is intelligence, and it's very impressive. So let's make sure that we're using it in the right way and keeping it in the proper context. Let's get the most out of the ideation. Let's uninhibit it. Let's take the chains off. Let's get it giving us many, many ideas. We don't have to rate them at this point. Let's just get as many ideas on the table as we can because we want that divergent thinking. We want the thinking outside of the box. We want to get as many ideas that we may not have thought of to create greater awareness about what our options are. This is the real power of AI, is that it can be that flexible. Once we have all of that, we can also use it to take that diverse corpus of ideas, thoughts, plans, and structures to bring them together into something that's verifiable, feasible, and applied across our expertise to our critical thinking scrutiny. What is the pathway to our success? What things haven't we thought of? And now that we've thought of them, let's bring it down to which one's going to be most likely to get us the success we're looking for. By the way, if it doesn't work out, let's measure it. Let's figure out whether it's working. And if we need to, let's pivot to one that may be more successful based on the feedback that we're getting. So it's this procedure and process that leads us to useful and effective use of large language models. I hope you've enjoyed the course thus far and that it helps to frame what you need to go do next.
Well, thanks again for taking our class. Again, this is Kevin Robinson at TechBridge Unlimited. We hope you'll return and look at some of the other videos being posted right now. Please post in the comments your thoughts and whether or not this was of value to you. This feedback is extremely important to us, and we definitely respond to it. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you in other videos. Don't forget, there's a link below to join our community. We're looking forward to building a community of like-minded people that are looking for real results from AI solutions and implementations. We want to make sure that you're able to get what you need, apply it, get the results you need, and keep progressing, keep growing. That is the intent. So we use our access framework. We create awareness, knowledge, skills, experiences that we can produce specimens. And once we have examples of what we want, AI is supercharged. So please come back and follow along, and we look forward to helping you grow. And we grow with you. So looking forward to meeting up with you in the community.